This series of videos is going to cover the commercial space project in Revit. So what you'll want to do is make sure that you have Revit launched or open. So I already have Revit open here. And then from As You Learn, you are going to download this template file. You can open it in a new window or the same window, it's not going to matter. And then you're just going to want to make sure that you have it downloaded. And then in Revit, we're going to start a new model. We're going to browse our template files. And then it opened up on a different screen, but I'll pull it over here. We're going to look in and we'll find our downloads folder. And then you'll want to use that commercial spaces project to start a new file. And then we'll click OK. Now, if you're using the same file or the same computer that you've been using for previous ones, you should already have your keyboard shortcuts loaded in. But just as a refresher, if you don't, on As You Learn, there's this file here called Keyboard Shortcuts. Again, you'll just want to click on that and you can download, open it in a new window or the same window. And we don't need to open it up. But then in Revit, what you'll do is you'll use the keyboard shortcut command KS to load in a keyboard shortcut. And then we're going to import and then go look in your downloads folder and you'll have the keyboard shortcut file there. When you're prompted if you want to merge or overwrite, you're going to click on overwrite and then we can click OK to have our keyboard shortcuts loaded in, because some of them again are going to be custom. Now, or some that I'll be saying rather will be custom. Now, what we're going to do in this project is recreate this office space, just kind of like a leasable office building. I'll scroll up to the first page here. So it's kind of a larger blank area with a couple of featured curtain walls, but then we'll also learn a little bit about some structural pieces in this project, as well as just a couple of custom things and masonry work that we haven't done in projects prior. Now in the template file, I've also provided a grid system. And one of the first things we're going to do is actually just kind of lock our grid into place so that way we don't accidentally move anything. So what I'm going to do in Revit is I'm going to use the dimension command, which again is keyword shortcut DI. And then I'm going to place a dimension from grid C to grid B to grid A. And then I'm going to click somewhere to place it. And then I'm going to click on these locks to lock those dimensions into place. I'll do the same thing from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then click somewhere to place them, and then click on each of these locks. What we're going to do is dimension, or rather draw our walls to this grid, and we want to make sure that we're not moving any of these grid spaces as much as we possibly can. So then I'm going to hit escape a bunch of times just to end the dimension tool. And if I zoom in on one of the corners here, we can see that for our masonry, we're going to dimension to the interior core face there. So I'm going to create my kind of gray split face CMU wall based on that interior face. So back in Revit, I'm going to start the wall command, which is keyword shortcut WA, or this button right here. For my wall type, I'm going to put my wall type as my P01 exterior gray brick on CMU. For my base constraint, I'll have it start at level 1. For my top constraint, I'm going to have it go up to level 4. So base constraint level 1, top constraint level 4, and then my location line I want as core face interior, which we can set here or we can set over here. And then I'm just going to start drawing on A1, and I'm going to go over to A5, down to C5, to C1, and then back up to A1 to close it. And then I'll hit escape about 700,000 times. So now I've got the core of my building started. My next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting in this stairwell that's hanging out over here on sheet or on the first floor. So this is going to go from level 1 to level 5. And what I'm going to do first is just kind of generally place it. And then I'm going to use my dimensions to actually move it into a specific spot. So I'm going to start the wall tool again, which is keyword shortcut WA. For my wall type, instead of this gray brick, I'm going to use the exterior brick on metal stud. So P01 exterior brick on metal stud. I'll leave my location line as core face interior. I'll leave my base constraint as level 1, but I'm going to change my top constraint to go up to level 5. And then just somewhere to the right of grid line 3 is where I'll start. I'll go up. I'll go over somewhere to the left of grid line 5, and then I'm going to go back down. And then once I'm all done, I'll hit escape 100 times, and we'll see that that kind of clears itself up. I'm also just going to click and drag these dimensions up a little bit, just so they're out of my way a little more. And then I'm going to place some dimensions to move my walls here into place. So I'm going to go from grid 3 to the exterior core face here, then back over to my exterior core face. So I'll start the dimension tool again, which is keyword shortcut DI. For my dimension type, instead of a preference to the wall center line, I'm going to opt for the faces of core, because that'll make it easier to choose the core faces. And I'm going to go from grid line 3 by clicking on it, and don't be afraid to zoom in because we want to go to the face of core. And then while still in the dimension tool, I'm going to zoom out and then zoom in to go to the face of core over here. And then I'll click up to place my dimension, and then I'll hit escape 100 times. So I want this to be 2 foot, 0 3/4 of an inch. And I want this to be 34 feet, 10 3/4. So back in Revit, I'm going to click on this wall so I can change this dimension to 2 foot, 3/4 of an inch, enter. And then to change this number, I want to click on this right wall. Then I can click on that dimension, 34 feet, 10 3/4, enter. The last dimension we'll need to place is how far up this wall here is going to sit. And we can find that if we zoom out over here. So it's going to be 11 foot 2 to the interior core face there. So I'm going to place that dimension over here though, just to make it easier to place. So I'm going to do keyboard shortcut DI to start dimension from grid A. And then again, don't be afraid to zoom in so we can click on it, click out to place it, hit escape a couple of times, click on our wall, and then we can make this 11 foot 2, enter. We'll also, while we're here, I'll place this interior partition wall. For the time being, it sits somewhere a little bit skewed to the left of grid line 4. So back in Revit, I'm going to start the wall tool, which is keyword shortcut WA. For my wall type, I want P01 interior 7.5 partition. And this is going to go from level 1 all the way up to level 5. And then I'm just going to whack that somewhere in there. And I'll place it later once I have my doors and windows in there. And I'll hit escape 100 times. Let's go look at her 3-dimensionally. So I could do that in my project browser over here, or I could click on my default 3D view to go look at it 3D. And one thing we're missing in our building is a wall here, just to cover this part off. I'm going to go into my level 3 floor plan. by double clicking on it in my project browser. And then I'm going to draw a brick wall across here for the time being and then move it into place. So I'm going to start the wall tool, which again is keyword shortcut WA. For my wall type, I'm going to do my P01 exterior brick on metal stud. I'm going to start at level 3 and I'm going to go with a top constraint up to level 5. And I could leave my location line as core face interior if I'd like. It just isn't going to make that much of a difference. And when we go place this wall, we are going to get a warning. We are going to get an alert about it, but I'll show you how to fix that. So I'm going to just click to start my wall, click to finish it, and see there's my warning. It says highlighted walls overlap. So I'm just going to hit escape 100 billion times. What it's telling me is this wall goes up to level 4, which is, if I go look at it 3D, is hanging out above it. So it's saying that these two walls are kind of glitching into each other. So we need to fix that, is what it's saying. But first, I'll go back into level 3, and I'm going to align the face of this wall and the face of this one. So I'm going to start the align tool, which is keyboard shortcut AL. I'm going to click on my gray wall's face, and then I'm going to click on the outside face of this brick wall. And then I'm going to lock the two into place. So I already have it auto lock when I align. You'll see that I have this checked off here, but if yours is unlocked, just make sure you go and click that lock button. Then I'll hit escape 100 billion times. And then I'm just going to play with these walls to see if I can get them to join up. Let's see if I can get this one maybe to pull it out a little. I want to try to get these walls to join. So I'm going to pull on that grip there, that little blue end. There we go. I'm going to pull and drag on that blue end. Cool. Let's pull and drag on this too to make them all join up. So now I fixed the placement of this wall. I'm going to go into my 3D view to kind of slice that part out though next. So to do that, I'm going to use cut geometry, which this is one of the custom keyboard shortcuts that we loaded in with that keyboard shortcut file, is keyboard shortcut CG. And then you're going to click on the big gray wall, and then you're going to click on the brick wall. And what that has done is it's cut the gray wall out. Big gray wall, this wall from it. So now they're no longer overlapping each other. Sometimes, let me go back into my level 3 view. Sometimes when we pull these, it kind of will go and make the level 1 view a little bit messed up. Yeah, see that? So what we're going to do to fix that is we'll use join geometry, which is a custom keyboard shortcut again of JG. And then we can just click on the two walls, and it doesn't matter necessarily the order. So I'll click on this wall, I'll click on this one, and that'll refix that. Okay. Next, what I'll do is I'm going to add in all of my doors and windows from them. So all of the doors and windows that you're going to use are already preloaded in. So I'm just going to put in my 3 hollow doors around here, and then later on I'll use dimension to move them into place. So I'll go back into Revit. I'm going to start the door tool, which is keyboard shortcut DR, or this button here. And this is the door we'll use for all doors in this project, this 36 by 80 hollow metal door. And I'll just place one roughly, again, based on where you have your cursor, will determine which way the door swings. You can also use the space bar to flip it. And then even after you've placed it, you can move it around. But I'll just place 3 doors somewhere in my level 1 floor plan. And then I'll do my windows. So I'll hit escape 100 times. For our windows on level 1, we have 3 hanging out over here. So I'm going to start the window tool, which is keyboard shortcut WN, or this button here. And this will be the only window we use in this project as well. And I'm just going to place roughly with my cursor towards the outside of the wall, and I'll click 1, 2, 3, and then I'll hit escape a bunch of times. Now I'm going to pull this dimension string up again, just because I want this up as well. There we go. Next, I'll place a dimension string that goes from grid line 5 to the center of this door, to the center of this wall, to the center of this door. So I'm going to start the dimension tool, which is keyboard shortcut DI. I'm going to go click on grid 5, click on the middle of the door, click on the middle of the wall, which sometimes it doesn't want to give you, but there we go. So I'll click again. I'll click on the middle of this door, and then I'll click down to place it. I'll hit escape 100 times, and then I'm going to click on this door to adjust this number, click on this wall to adjust this number, click on this door to adjust this number. So we're doing 5 foot 7 1/4, 19 foot 10 1/2, 2 foot 5 3/4. So I'll click on my door, 5 foot 7 1/4, enter. Click on this wall. I think I said 19 foot 10 1/2, which it didn't do something, but I'll show you. Is like, let's say I had this door really close to it by chance. When I click on this wall and I make this 19 foot 10 1/2, it'll yell at me. It'll say, hey, this door's kind of in this wall, and that's stupid, is what essentially Revit's saying. So I can just hit escape a bunch of times. I can click on this door, and I could just use my arrow keys to just scooch it over, and then I can click on this number to change it, which I believe it was 2 foot 5 3/4. I could be wrong. Nope, unfortunately, I had that memorized. So I've got now these doors placed. For this door up here, instead of placing a dimension, I could use the align tool to line this and this up. So again, that's going to be keyboard shortcut AL. And again, I would recommend checking off this lock button so they automatically lock. And I can click on this door here and this one, and then they'll just lock together. For my windows, there we go. For my windows, it's going to be from grid line A to the middle, to the middle, to the middle. And then we have 6 foot 6, 6 foot, and then 6 foot again. So I'm going to place a dimension string. I'll hit escape a bunch of times to get out of a line. Dimension is going to be DI. Click on grid line A to middle of window, to middle of window, to middle of window. Click to place the dimension string. Hit escape 100 times. I'll click on this window to change this dimension number. I'll click on this window to change this dimension. I'll click on this window to change this dimension. Now on level 2, so if I go back into my drawing here, on level 2, we have a few other windows, but they're just placed a little bit differently. We have a couple here. We've got one here in the bathroom. We've got a couple here on this side, and then one down here as well. But our doors are actually placed in the exact same spot they are from level 1. So what we can do for that is if we go into our level 2 floor plan, you'll see when I go to start the door tool, keyboard shortcut DR, those little witness lines, those blue dimensions, are essentially, it's telling me right now that I'm centered 4 feet away from where the first floor one is. So I can actually move myself over until it says 0, 0, and then I can click to place my door and it'll be in the same spot. Same thing over here, then on this side, I'll just move myself over until I'm at 0, 0, and then I've got that door in the same spot. And I don't have to necessarily place the dimension string in order to move them into place. We have then, I'll hit escape a bunch of times and start my window tool, which again is keyboard shortcut WN. And and I'm just going to roughly place 3 windows here. Again, click, making sure that I'm on the outside. 1, 2, 3. I'll place another one in this bathroom. I'll place 3 more over here. 1, 2, 3. And then another one down towards over here as well. Then I'm going to use the dimension tool so I can move these windows into place. So I'll hit escape 100 times. I'll start dimension, which is keyboard shortcut DI, and I'll place a dimension from grid 1 to center, to center, to center. I'll click up to place it. And then over here we have from grid A to center, to center, to center. I'll click down over to place it. And then down here we have from grid 5. So click on grid 5, click on the middle of the window, and then click to place. I'll hit escape 100 times. And then I'm going to do 4 foot, and then 6 foot, and then 6 foot again. So I can click on this window, click on this dimension, click on this window to change this dimension. Click on this window to change this dimension. Hit escape a bunch of times, and I'll move these up. For this one here, it's aligned with this door. So we'll start the align tool, which is keyboard shortcut AL. I'll click on the center of this door and the center of this window. And because I have this auto lock, it automatically locked, but if yours didn't, go ahead and click on that. Then I'm going to hit escape 100 times. Let me just double check my dimensions. Okay, cool. We've got 6 foot 6, and then 6 foot, and then 6 foot. So I'm going to click on this window, 6 foot 6, enter. Click on this window, 6 foot, enter. Click on this window, 6 foot, enter. And then the one down here, I'll click on the window, click on the dimension string, and it's going to be 5 foot 7 1/4. For this one, I could have also done an align from here to this one. And then on level 3, we have just 2 doors on level 3 here. So I'm going to start the door tool, which is keyboard shortcut DR. It's not giving me that guide here, so I'll show you another way we can do it. I'm just going to place 2 random doors, and I'll go into my 3D view, which again is either this button or in your view over here. And then I'll hit escape a bunch of times. In my 3D view, I can actually use the align tool to align this door and this door. So I'm going to do keyboard shortcut AL. I'll click on this side of this door and the side of this one, and it'll bring it over. And I'll just orbit around side and side, and it'll align them up, which is kind of cool that you can do it that way as well for it. Then the last thing we'll do in this video are those curtain walls, or those wall features that are on. They go from level 1 to the top of level 2. So they're 16 feet tall in total. And we can see in our floor plan that they are 14 feet wide. So I'm going to, in Revit, go to my level 1 floor plan. And I'm going to start the wall tool to create these curtain walls. And for my wall type, I'm going to use P01 curtain wall. For my base constraint, I'm going to have level 1. Top constraint, I'll have go up to level 2. And then I'm going to just start by drawing it somewhere in here. I'm not going to be able to get this first one perfect placement, but I should be able to get the others. So I'm starting on that center, and then I'm going to go over to the right 14 feet. And it's going to yell at me again. It's going to tell me that these 2 highlighted walls overlap. So I'll use cut geometry to fix that. So that's keyboard shortcut CG, and then click on this wall, click on the curtain wall, and it'll cut it out. And I'll Control Z to undo that. when we're doing our cut geometry, which again is CG, or if you don't have the keyboard shortcuts loaded in, you could click on one of the walls and it'll be this button here. You'll click on the thing you want to keep, which is this big CMU wall, and then what you want to get rid of is the curtain wall. And you can kind of see that, like, not quite phantom line because it's got 3 dashes in it, but that line pop up with the 2 end dashes, and then you can click on the curtain wall to get rid of it. I'll put in the other 3 on this side. I think there's just 2 more on this side. Yeah. I'll put these ones in and then cut them simultaneously. But these ones, we will be able to kind of measure it with witnesses to these grid lines, so we can actually place them a little bit easier. So again, I'll start the wall tool. I'll just keyboard shortcut WA, leaving all my constraints alone. And see, when I go to place it, that witness is going to that grid line. So I can actually start 3 feet over and then make it 14 feet. Enter. I'll just ignore the warning for now because I know what it means. I'll start 3 feet over to the right 14 feet. And then I'll use cut geometry, which is keyboard shortcut CG, to grab onto the big wall, click on the little one, grab onto the big, click on the curtain wall to cut it out. And we have one more over here as well. So I'll start the wall tool, which is keyboard shortcut WA, start it, and then I'll go up 14 feet. And then I'll use cut geometry, which is CG, or this button here, to click on the wall, click on that little guy in there. Then I'm going to place a bunch of dimension strings. So I'm going to go from grid 1 to edge of curtain wall to edge of curtain wall, grid 2, edge of curtain wall, edge of curtain wall 3, edge of curtain wall, end of curtain wall 4. So I'm going to start dimension, which is keyboard shortcut DI, from grid 1 to edge to edge to 2, click on edge, click on the edge, 3, edge, edge, 4, and then I'll click down to place it. I'll hit escape a bunch of times, and then I'm going to click on the dimension string, and what I want to do is lock the numbers that are already what I want. So I'm going to lock this 14. I'll lock all of these amounts as well, because these are already reading what I want them to be. So because I locked this to be 14 feet, now when I click on the curtain wall, the only 2 numbers I can change are this number and this number. So I clicked on the curtain wall, and I'm going to make this 3 feet. And since I told the software that this has to be 14 feet, it resolved my dimension problem by also just changing that around. I'll place another dimension here. So that's keyboard shortcut DI. I'll go from grid C to edge of curtain wall to edge of curtain wall, and then I'll click out to place it. I'll hit escape a bunch of times. Then I'll click on my dimension line and lock that 14 into place. So then I can click on the curtain wall and make this 3 feet. Then finally, what we're going to do is split it into different pieces or different sections. So I'll do that from my 3D view. I find it easiest to do from my 3-dimensional view. And what we'll do is in our architecture tab, we're going to place a curtain grid. So when I go to do a curtain grid, if I want to split vertically, I have to be on one of the horizontal members. So I could be down here or up here. If I want to split horizontally, I have to be on one of these vertical sides. So I'm going to split it into an 8-foot by 8-foot section by clicking on it once I see it. Another 8-foot by 8-foot. So I'm going to split all 4 of these into 8-foot by 8-foot horizontally. If you don't get it perfect, you can always click on those witnesses and you can change it. So now I have it 9-foot by 7-foot, but I wanted 8 by 8. What's going to be hard is this way. We want 4 foot by 10 foot, and it might be hard to get that perfectly. So again, what you could always do is just click somewhere and then click on that dimension and make it 4 foot. But as I was saying, it was going to be hard. I happened to see it pop up. But again, I'm just going to place mine randomly and then click on this dimension to make it 4 foot. Place it randomly, click on this dimension to make it 4 foot in there. And let me double check that that's what I want, because if I just split it the wrong way, but I'm pretty confident. Where's an elevation? There it is. Yep, 4 foot by 10 foot is what we're splitting it into. Then I'm going to turn this panel here into a door. So to do that, in my 3D view, I'm going to hover over one of the edges of that panel, and I'm going to cycle through the tab key. So I'm going to click tab to see if just that panel gets highlighted. If it doesn't, I could keep going through with my tab, but mine did. So I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to change it in the properties panel from a glazed panel into a single door, which is what this one is here. And that made that one into a door. I'll orbit around a little bit. I'm going to turn this panel here into a door. So again, I've got to hover over the edge, cycle through with my tab key until just that panel gets highlighted, and then click on it. And then I'll change it into a door. Then, right now we just have pieces of glass, but we need to put mullions around the glass. So to do that is going to be the mullion command, which doesn't have a keyboard shortcut, but in the architecture tab, it's this button here. And I would recommend, instead of doing a bunch of grid lines, just use all grid. And then you could just click on this panel, click on this panel, click on this one, and this one. And that way they all have a grid on them. And then lastly, before we save our progress, I'm going to go into my level 1 floor plan and just check the way these doors have been loaded in. So I'll click on this door. I want to flip it around, I believe, and out. I believe I have it opening outward. Yeah, it's hinged on that side. So it opens outward. And I'll do the same thing on this side. I'll click on this door and I'll flip it using those arrows to flip. And then we'll want to make sure that we save our progress. So I'm going to click on File, and I could do Save or Save As since this is my first time saving. And I'll save it as a project. And you'll want to make sure that you put yours into your flash drive, but I'm just going to go through my Google Drive folders, assignments, BIM, and then we'll call it BSC 1210, your last name in all caps, your first name lowercase, and then dash commercial, which I usually spell incorrectly. I did. I said commercial. Usually it's this, I mess up like the I and the A, I flip them around. And then I'm just going to name mine commercial 01 because this is going to be my part 1 save. I'm going to make separate saves. You can keep yours all as one. And I'll see you in the next video to continue the project.